Hey Aaron, how's it going?
Hey Kelly, it's great. I'm glad to be here. I'm in a bright room, ready to talk to you.
I love it. Awesome. I'm glad to have you here. I'm really excited. You have like the best story. I'm excited for people to hear your side of the world. I think you're constantly telling other people's stories and asking questions. So a bit of a reverse for you today.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much. Where would you like
Yeah.
to start?
Well, okay, so let's talk about this career path because I think that's like the framework, right? For kind of everything is like solar installer and training, and then you switched over to like this transition to marketing, and you host This Week in Solar. What motivated the transition? Like, what has informed your storytelling? Like, tell us like the behind the scenes and how you did that.
I mean, what informed my storytelling was just I've been a storyteller since I was a small child. I've always loved to read and write.
I love that.
I think my career as a writer peaked when I won my local dairy farm's poetry contest at the age of 9.
That's
It's
awesome.
really been downhill from there, but so a lot of what's happened has been pretty good.
That's awesome.
But I wound up in renewable energy actually because I met circus girls on the beach in Ecuador. And
Okay.
that's that, this my life is nothing but a series of soapboxes, like we were talking about before we started recording. But
Yeah.
it's such an important thing for me to reiterate anytime I get interviewed that I do not have a traditional background, and yet I'm doing quite well anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I was passed over when I went through a job search, and we can go through that story. But I was passed over going through a job search so many times because I didn't have a certain background. And now that I'm here, I want to reiterate, like, my education, my background didn't look like anything anyone was looking for, and I'm here and I'm doing it anyway. And there's plenty of people like me who deserve chances. So we
I
frame the
love that.
conversation there and then take you back to Ecuador.
Yes. Okay.
So when I was, let's see, I think it was like 27. When the pandemic hit in 2020, I was in Nepal for the Peace Corps.
Okay.
And I was planning to do my whole 2-year term as an educator in Nepal. COVID hit after 7 weeks. We were all sent home. All of us had sold everything. So just had
You
nothing.
came home to nothing.
Came home to nothing.
Oh,
And
oh my gosh.
I took a teaching job that I had turned down to go to Nepal. I swore to myself I would never teach in the US, but the pandemic changed that. I spent the roughest year of my life teaching in a Title I school in Western Colorado. And after that, I was so burned out and miserable, I went traveling for 2 years. And it was actually while I was on that journey and spending a lot of time just learning to surf in Central America that I listened to an interview. This is very timely. I actually listened to an interview with Jane Goodall, who passed
Oh, yeah.
a couple days ago. I don't know when this episode's going to go out, but she was just talking about like the
Mhm.
need for people who will just fight to create a better future and not give up.
Yeah.
And I was very inspired by that. I had no idea what I was going to do when I came back. So I sort of started thinking I wanted to be involved in renewable energy because I had heard her
Mhm.
talk about it and it just seemed really cool, but I had no idea how to get into it. And then lo and behold, I meet two circus girls on the beach in Ecuador who invite me on a door-to-door sales blitz trip for their solar company.
Oh my gosh.
So I went on one. I was terrible at it, but made a little bit of money and got to continue traveling with that. Um, and after a while, I was at the end of my 2 years of traveling. I was in
Mhm.
Bali. I didn't know what I was gonna do, but I thought renewable energy still sounded amazing, and so I signed up for a 6-week solar installer training through Grid Alternatives.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, so I came back home, I landed and completed the training. Then I went and worked in Alaska for a summer, having nothing to do with clean energy. And then I came back, and thankfully, at the time, I was in a relationship with someone who was older than me, who put a lot of pressure on me to get to her income level really fast. And so I couldn't just go be an installer. So I went through that fruitless job search I was telling you about earlier, where I got passed over because I had spent all this time traveling. And it was really combining writing with the fact that I was a NABCEP PV associate that
Mhm.
sort of what ended up being the magic sauce. I
Yeah.
started on Upwork. Exact Solar was actually one of my first clients, but at the time I worked with Suncast, I worked with Nico Johnson, I worked with some
Mhm.
really big names in the space, and everyone was just so excited that I was a certified PV associate and had any idea what I was talking about. And then I kept doing client work until
Mhm.
about year and a half ago when Exact Solar brought me on full time.
That's awesome. It's so cool to hear people's stories and how they got into the industry. I'm not sure there's actually a conventional way to get into our industry at this
Yeah.
point.
And yet, like, it's such a good filter for people,
Yes.
the
Yeah.
coolest people imaginable.
We have the best. I don't know. I'm totally biased to our industry at this point. I love our whole industry. So
Yeah. Yeah, me
that's
too.
awesome. Uh, well, so one of the things that I love about your writing and when you're talking, and I just obviously like I follow you in what you're working on. You talk a lot about the story sticking and the facts fading, which for me is important. I do this like really unique type of NERC compliance that's like pretty technical, probably kind of boring. My kids are like, I have no idea what you do, right? Like
Yeah.
it's just one of those things, but like I can tell a story about reliability and like situations I've been in, and then people start to understand like, oh, this is why it's important, right? And so I think storytelling has always been just kind of the way to connect people together and understanding these like technical things and then getting us to a good place. So what I think for you, I want to hear like what does good storytelling look like, and like how does that narrative like outperform the technical messaging? Because like you're
Mhm.
thinking about that. And I think people, I don't know, we just get so stuck in the facts, but the story is so
Mhm.
important. Like tell us more about that.
And it is very well intentioned. I think, like, there's a desire, especially as people who have been college educated a lot of the times, to really
Hmm.
hammer on facts, use charts and graphs, and they
Yeah.
think that that's the way they're gonna convince people of things. But the joke I love to say is, like, how many of you have ever gotten in an argument with your significant other and then immediately showed them a graph?
Hmm.
Um, it's
Yeah.
not That's not how it works. That's not how you convince people of things.
No. Yeah.
People have to be interested in something to then go find facts for
Hmm.
themselves. And the thing that makes them
Yeah.
interested is a story. It's never the big picture data. My friend Spencer Meeks, I'm not sure if you know him, but
Hmm.
he likes to say, we were on a call the other day, and he was like, nothing is sexy. How do we make it so? Um, and I love that perspective. And there's been so many things that I've learned on this journey, because like I had a hunch that I was correct like a year ago, and now I have
Hmm.
so much to back this up. But
Yeah.
there's a couple different things I want to hit on here. There's social science that supports the idea that stories stick and facts fade. But the
Hmm.
reason that we think that facts are on equal footing with stories is because facts and stories move people's perceptions in the moment about the same amount. Like, if you tell someone a fact or a story,
Hmm.
pretty equal generally, they'll say they were moved by it. But what's interesting is that the human mind is designed to remember stories. That's the way we make sense of the world. So facts decay out of the mind very quickly. If you
Hmm.
talk to someone a couple days later about a fact that they learned, they generally have no idea what it was. But a story has a framework. There's a plot line that you can follow and something that you can remember there.
Yeah.
And the way that this works on a larger scale is, one thing that frustrates me to no end is we're always so focused on, like, we deployed however many megawatts, and to the
Hmm.
average person you might as well be saying like this 50 bajillion widgets. It
They don't
means
even
nothing.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Or there's there's like, we're going to lose 10,000 jobs if we don't deploy this. Now,
Yeah.
I think we need to take a page out of the book of animal shelters. An animal shelter is not going to say we have 300 dogs that need to be adopted, because no one is going to be moved to action. Any social media page that comes from an animal shelter is going to say, here's Boomer. Boomer needs to be adopted. And then
Right.
all these traits about that one dog.
Yeah.
And this is something that nonprofits have studied ad nauseum, and is like, it's very ingrained in the human psyche, is that like one person is a solvable problem.
Yeah.
5 starving children, all of a sudden it's larger than you thought. If it's 100 starving kids, it's a problem you can't even affect. And this is why organizations like Compassion International will encourage you to sponsor one child.
Right.
So bringing things down to human scale is really important when we think about storytelling, when we think about like the effect the product is going to have on one person, not the product has protected 10,000 people from whatever nebulous thing.
Right. Yeah. I love that. We've had World Vision kids at my house for a long time. And one of our kids just graduated from high school. So we got a new World Vision kid. And you're right, like we're attached to that one person, to the story, right? And we get the letters and the updates and like all day long.
Yeah. When I was a kid, we had Compassion International, and I think we sponsored one girl for like 15 years because of the regular updates.
Yeah.
And the fact that we could see we were making a tangible difference in one person's life.
Yeah, definitely. It's so interesting too, you know, as you were talking, I was thinking 2 weeks ago, I heard this cybersecurity threat briefing that was like super impactful, right? Like it was in the story about it, in the, you know, the site that was infiltrated and hacked, and like, you know, the power that was brought down, like really hit me. And I've like retold the story so many times since I heard the threat briefing. But for the life of me, I can't remember the facts that she gave us during the threat briefing of like how many megawatts for how long, you know what I mean? Like how many assets were affected by the security breach. But I remember the story, right? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it was super impactful, but I can't remember the facts, you know?
Yeah.
But you repeat those stories constantly.
Yeah. And you can do that in any industry, I think. I mean, like, I think cybersecurity, just off the top of my head, it could be Sybil's 80 years old and she just lost her life savings because of this one thing.
Right. It makes a difference. And I think that's where we haven't, as an industry, I think we have a lot of work to do, is like to tell better stories, right? Because I think we have adversaries, or we have folks, even just like the communities that we start building projects in, right? Like you have resistance, you know, or there's a resistance across the aisle for us too. And I think some of that is like we've failed to tell good stories to help people understand why what we're doing is important. So
yeah. And can I tell you the story I want to tell? This is actually something when I was in the woods for a week, I actually was sitting on the ridgetop of a mountain, and I realized this, and I thought I want to bring this when I'm on the show.
Definitely.
But I realized, you know, like ever since the new administration has come in, pundits are just on TV all the time, basically just saying like, you're too dumb to understand the grid. You just can't understand it. You really just need to leave it up to people like us and trust us that the only possible way that this keeps going is if you let us keep making money by just digging things up and burning them.
Yeah.
And it's very patronizing and it's annoying to me. And what I realized is I think the story we need to tell, we need, like, we continue to try to meet this behemoth where it's at and trying to fight it with data, which drives me crazy. There's just all these graphs about all of the deployment and whatever. But the grid is a machine that we built together over the course of 100 years. It was never a static thing. It's been consistently evolving. And the latest evolution is us. We have better technology that we can add to it. And so it reminds me of, like, I made the connection to Kennedy's "We Choose to Go to the Moon" speech. And if anyone's never seen that, I encourage you to go look it up. But it's just like, are we up to the task or aren't we? Is the story we need to tell. Do we want to build a better world for our children or don't we? because it has nothing to do with can we do it? Of course we can. Like in Kennedy's speech, he says, we choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they're easy, but because they're hard. But because that goal will organize the best of our energies and skills.
Yeah.
And I feel very similarly about this problem. Are we
I
up for
love
the work
that.
of it or not?
Absolutely. I've spent a lot of time the last probably 2 months, maybe 3 months or so, kind of feeling frustrated, right, with like the big, beautiful bill and like just kind of all the things that are happening politically. And I've done a lot of reflecting. And I think to kind of tag off of you a little off script here, I think like the story I started telling, and I don't know, maybe people get tired of hearing me tell the story, but I think it's important. I lived through the energy crisis in 2001 as an operator in the California ISO and the control center. And, there were days where there wasn't enough generation to keep everything online. And we had brownouts and blackouts. And there was a night where we had to decide which hospital, were we going to trip offline that night. Right. And like, that's the life side of what we're doing. And to your point, like, I love the Kennedy speech, like, what are we going to do? Right. Like, are we willing to do these hard things? Because at the end of the day, like, we really are talking about life. You know what I mean? Like, this is life or death, like in some cases, like, this is a situation where we had the blackout that in New York, Eastern Seaboard in 2003. And, people died. They died of overheat, heat exhaustion and all of that because, it was record breaking 118 degrees in, New York City. Right? We've seen this in our past where, not having enough electrons is the problem. And guess what? Who can bring like the fastest electrons to the grid? Renewable energy all day long. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we can deliver 100 megawatts to the grid in 18 months, starting from nothing on the ground.
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty impactful. That's a big freaking deal to be able to do it so quickly.
Yeah,
right?
and we have
Like,
so much wasted space that's just rooftops and parking lots and like so much stuff that we can just put solar on. I think
Absolutely.
that's, we just need to make it, I think solar needs to be a little sexier. I actually just think it's too good at what it does. It just sits there and makes power. It's not glamorous. It doesn't move. I think we need to glamorize it a little bit.
Yeah. I love
Kellie,
that.
also one thing that I really like about you and the way you present yourself online, and something that it's what I try to do as well, is that I think the current administration is doing everything they can to kind of tie renewable energy in with their like get rid of anything woke idea, and they're really trying to make it seem like clean energy is this woke ideal.
Yeah.
And I really love that you work in clean energy and so much of your LinkedIn is you at rodeos. Like you near livestock. You're clearly you're just like, I'm not in a box.
No.
And I
Yeah.
love that. And I try to do the same thing. Like I'm wearing my sweaty hat and, I
Love
try
it.
to stay blue collar in my own personal branding.
Yeah. Yeah, we're actually gearing up, headed out to Elko tonight for a rodeo for the weekend, and we have horses and goats at my house and acreage, and I don't know, like it's not a box that renewable fits in, and I think there's this like maybe public and political perception, but at the end of the day, I've seen personally where solar has saved generational farms, right? Like where we're taking those 50 acres on a 500-acre family-owned farm, from the 1850s in the middle of Nevada, was that income that they needed to sustain their livestock business through the highs and lows that we see with drought and with climate change and that impact that makes it hard to sustain those businesses. Right. And I think there's something really nice about it all fitting together, like it's not a box thing, and it actually all works really nicely and is, you need all perspectives. So.
And this is another one of my 700 soapboxes. But solar is for all. It doesn't fit into a
Mhm.
political box.
No.
And yeah, it's as practical for someone who wants to build an off-grid anti-zombie bunker as it is for someone who wants to like power a school in inner city Philadelphia.
Yeah.
I mean, it's for
Yeah.
everyone. And
Or
it
a
also,
hospital in Nepal, right?
yeah.
Like, I mean, you
Mhm.
start to think about it even internationally, like, there's a lot of really important use cases, you
Yeah.
know?
And it democratizes access to energy.
Mhm.
And it
Yeah.
takes energy out of the hands of giant monopolistic
Mhm.
organizations and puts it in the hands of the people.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, the affordability thing I think is really important too. And that's something that I think I've learned a lot about in the past few months that I hadn't fully appreciated in a lot, you know, completely was another layer. And, you know, when we look at renewables, like it's actually creates an affordable solution. You know, it's
Mhm.
so expensive to go build a coal plant or to go build a nuclear power plant. It's, you know, 10, 20x the cost of a renewable facility. And so when you start to think about, you know, you're building a transmission line and then you're going to rate base, right, this generation that's coming in. And all of a sudden now, you know, you can't, you know, there's folks that can't afford electricity because
Mhm.
we've made it so expensive because we chose, you know, these really expensive sources of electricity
Mhm.
too. And I think that's a really important part of the story that maybe we don't, or I don't know if we talk about that enough either.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, and
yeah.
I don't wanna say that we're lucky because 'cause we're not lucky that power prices have gone up so much in our region. It's gonna cause a lot of suffering, but
Mhm.
we're excited that we can help.
Yeah,
I don't know
absolutely.
how much you know about PJM interconnection and all of that fiasco that's going on. Exact Solar is very much in that territory.
Yeah,
And so there's people calling in who were like, my bill is over $900 a
yeah,
month for
right.
electricity.
Yeah.
Like
I
that's
mean,
like,
I grew up in California, you know, we've only been in Nevada for the last 5 years, and, you know, there is a point where, you know, the affordability is real, you know, and
mhm,
it and the pricing is just is really tough, and we need to do some you know, we need to do something about that. You know, what are our kids what are we leaving back behind for our kids to inherit?
mhm.
So,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, it's so important. And once again, are we up for it or aren't we?
exactly.
I'm all for the macho challenge.
I love it. Well, I think one of the big things that you're doing to help with that and standing in the gap here is your weekly media, you know, the weekly things that you're doing. Will you tell us more? Like, I'm not sure, I'm sure I'm going to hit people with our audience that maybe aren't plugged in with you. So, will you kind of tell us about what you're doing and talking about? And I would love to know, like, how you're deciding what stories and, you know, like how you're balancing and producing that content.
Absolutely. So about 6 months ago, when
Mhm.
everything was kind of ramping up with the One Big Beautiful Bill, I was just doing weekly policy updates for our team.
Okay.
And I just started turning them into videos. And then we realized, well, this is something that we could actually turn into a weekly product. This
Mhm.
probably could be useful.
Yeah.
And because I have a tendency to try to get involved in absolutely everything all the time, my marketing manager was like, "Here's something you can grow. Leave me alone." And I was like,
I love it.
was just like, credit to her. She's amazing.
Oh, that's
But yeah,
awesome.
she distracted me with a shiny object, and I've been running with it.
Nice.
Um, and so I've been every week just looking for interesting news stories that happen in the world of solar energy. I lost you for a
Yeah.
second. You still there?
I'm here. Yeah, you're
Okay.
good.
So yeah, every week I've been looking for interesting news stories in the world of solar energy, and I scour all the clean energy publications. And right now, I mean the focus is just what I find most compelling. There's really no formal process,
Yeah.
but there's all sorts of gems out there that you don't
Mhm.
see.
Yeah.
Like there was a few. I think last month there was a plane that set the flight record for a solar powered flight. There's the race across Australia that has a name that I've forgotten. where they build like entirely solar powered cars. I reported on the winner of that. And the bigger
That's
stories,
so
like stuff
cool.
going on with the One Big Beautiful Bill, the
Mhm.
repeal of certain bits of funding.
Yeah.
So right now, it's much more of an eclectic mix of stories that I choose that I think are compelling because I want to be beholden to the public. And I'm trying to focus on what I think the public will find most interesting about solar. And we've actually
Mhm.
gotten quite a bit of traction from people who have already gone solar with us, who are already in our audience. So that's been really nice
Mhm.
to see.
That's awesome. Well, I want to ask you, I kind of had this last question for you because I think hopefully people, are seeing the value of storytelling and they're going to start leaning in, right, to your newsfeed and my newsfeed and all that, right, and seeing the power of that. But what do you think? So if you have the ear right now of, some marketing and executive folks at solar companies through this podcast, what, like, how should people be thinking about shifting like their perspective and what they're talking about? Like, what's kind of the advice and like mindset you'd want those folks to have?
I covered it earlier. It would be shrinking stories down and making them relatable. But let me ground that in something that will make it
Mhm.
actually seem more concrete
Yeah.
and show people the actual benefits we've gotten from that. I
Hmm.
think one of the best stories we've had so far is that we installed a solar energy system. It's an off-grid system that powers a greenhouse in inner city Philadelphia, and it's on the property of a school. They have this really beautiful outdoor education program. Somehow they're on
Hmm.
50 acres of woodland in the middle of Philadelphia. Um,
So cool.
and they have this hydroponic greenhouse that's now entirely powered by solar. And we built the solar and battery system for them. And we thought it was just so cool that we decided to host a ribbon cutting there. And with enough runway, we promoted the crap out of it. And our congressman ended up showing up. So that was Congressman
So
Brendan
cool.
Boyle.
Hmm.
The local state representative ended up showing up. We had the local NPR subsidiary ended up showing up.
So
And
cool.
politicians love anything
Hmm.
with kids. Like he got
Yeah.
a chance to stand in front of a bunch of kids and cut the big ribbon. So he got what he wanted out of it too.
Yeah.
But that story led to coverage in the local NPR chapter, which led to a relationship which got us published in national NPR in a story that went all over the country in NPR subsidiaries in 50 states. And that like increased our site authority, increased our backlink profile. There was just a host of benefits that came from it, but that all came from sitting down and thinking about what is interesting about this.
Hmm.
And if we had said, this system is powered by 28 sun power modules with 28 Tygo inverters behind them, and it's like no one would have cared. It doesn't matter.
No. Right.
The point
Yeah.
is like, and so what I like to say is think about what does it power and why should the listener give a crap?
Hmm.
And in that particular instance, the output of that system grows food, and the
Yeah.
children grow the food, and then they sell the extra produce at a farmer's market. So it's an incredible story. And I
So,
guarantee every company, anyone listening to this, has a story of how your product has affected someone on a human scale.
hmm.
And it's very tempting to be like, we've created another report with more
Yeah.
graphs.
More facts.
We don't need more graphs. We're
Yeah.
drowning in graphs and no one cares.
Yeah.
We need stories. We need
Yeah.
compelling
Yeah.
individual stories that are emotionally based and will make the
Mhm.
listener care enough that they'll go read some of the charts we
Yeah.
already have.
So that. I want to know. We'll have to ask Spencer, like, if these stories are like sexy enough for solar.
I also think anyone who's interested in being a little sexier should go look at the off-grid market. The off-grid market's
Yeah.
amazing. The
Hmm.
people who sell like solar for overlanders and backcountry
Yeah.
campers, they're so good at
Totally.
it.
Yeah. They are really good at it. It's true. I love that. Well, it's so good to talk about it. I just really appreciate your perspective and your work because I think stories are it's so important. And I don't know how we bridge the gap and do what we need to do over the next 2, 3 years to leave a really great legacy without changing the way we talk about stuff. So
Mhm.
I appreciate you being here and sharing your perspective because I think it's really important. And I hope folks kind of walk away from this thinking about how to tell stories and tell better stories and really focus on that because I think it's really key to what we have going on. So,
Thank you so much. And yeah,
yeah.
I mean, if you've enjoyed listening to me talk, you can listen to me talk more at
Mhm.
This Week in
Yes,
Solar, which is on Substack, YouTube, and Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
I love it. We will link in the episode notes to all of the ways to follow Aaron. So,
Amazing.
yes, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Kelly.